All right, guys. So we're on our very, very last bubble, which is contingencies. So before we dive into what like how we account for a contingency, just think about like a contingent plan, a contingency plan. It's like a backup plan. It's like a plan B. Like if this doesn't work out, or if this happens, oh, we need to account for this, or something like that, right? So that's what we're talking about, contingencies. So contingency liability may arise from past transactions only if certain events occur in the future. So they are potential obligations. So maybe you weren't around during this time, but maybe what happened was, or maybe you were around this time, but there was a BP oil spill. Okay. All right, so I want to share some information about maybe you were around about the BP oil spill. So I'm going to show you some pictures and then kind of talk about the BP oil spill and how it affected everything. So this is BP. They are a large provider of oil for us. And so in April 2020, they had an oil spill. And so here it is in the Gulf of Mexico, in the middle of the sea. They're putting out a huge, a massive fire, right? So here's some of the wildlife affected by the oil spill, right? Just some tragic, very tragic pictures. If you weren't maybe in the know at the time, it was such a big headline of this oil spill, the largest oil spill um, in our history, right? So this is some pictures. But yeah, again, BP oil spill was the largest spill in history. It unleashed more than 3 million barrels of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. It had a huge environmental impact on fishes and seabirds. They were all devastated. And then as you can imagine, there were individuals that were all affected by this. The fishing community and tourism, they couldn't meet their financial obligations. The spill resulted in substantial large losses for BP in 2010. And then the CEO left his position that same year because, again, it was so much going on. And hey, that's just kind of what happened, unfortunately. And then lastly, I want to highlight that BP pled guilty to 14 felony charges from the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, and they paid fines of more than $4 billion. $4 billion on settling the case in 2012. Okay. And so those claims are those files, plus payments to settle various civil claims, cost BP more than $40 billion. So when you have a situation like that, let's talk about, what does that look like? Because that is a huge contingent liability. Okay, so they knew it was coming. When that explosion took place, I'm sure their CFO and CEO on down were like, oh crap, right? So let's talk about accounting for a contingent liability. So it's accounting for, so usually when you're accounting for a contingent liability, there's two factors we must consider. The likelihood of maybe a lawsuit or the impending past transaction occurring. And then we need to also look at can we measure it, right? So if it's likely that the past transaction will cause a potential liability, if it's probable, I've highlighted probable, but if it's probable, it can fall into three categories: probable, reasonably possible, or remote. Remote being that there's a low likelihood, right? And then measurement, it can fall into two categories: estimatable, meaning you can estimate the cost, or not estimated. So it's very black and white. But the deadly combination between probable and estimatable means that you must record and disclose it into your financial statement. You must debit the expense and create the liability, such as BP. They probably was like, oh crap. And right, so even though they probably recorded the contingent liability, they wound up paying out $40 billion in civil and other fines and fees, okay? And then my other example I have here for you is maybe a product warranty. So I know LG was also in the news about this, where like their newest washer and dryer was having issues. Again, examples of how to record liabilities. So with that, that's it for chapter 10. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you have any questions, as always, let me know. If not, I look forward to seeing you in the following chapter. Thanks. Bye.